do all the sewing on the top so gravity is not working against him. Now this animal, this is how he came to rest. If he was laying on his side, I'd just be cutting him on the side, but again, it's just a dorsal cut. One thing you want to make sure on animals like this that are very thick skinned up around the neck, make sure that as you cut, the knife blade is moving away from you. You don't want to be making gouges up towards you. One time I lived in Alaska and there was a guy who killed a moose. He was caping it out. The knife blade slipped, went 7 inches into his brain, right through his eyeball. You don't want to have any accidents. Make sure all the cuts you make, the blade is moving away from you. Make the first cut right here, the base of the antlers. We're basically just following right down the longest part of the hair. This is the toughest part of the hide, so don't get in a hurry and don't get careless, and you want a sharp knife. Around the other side. Now as we get down into the bend of the neck here, we're actually getting into the front part of the back straps. So we want to make sure on our cut we don't get into that meat, and we'll just keep following right down the spine. We can feel the spine right now. We'll just run right down that ridge line. If you lose sight of the spine, just use your fingertips, find where that spine is, and just stay along the ridge line of that, right on the top of it. So now we have our first cut all the way from the tail, right at the tip of the tail, all the way up along the ridge of the back, all the way to the base of the antlers between the ears. Now you can see we have the back straps that are starting to get exposed. So instead of moving this animal around, rolling it, and risk getting the meat dirty, now I'm going to remove the back straps. Now I'm just pulling the skin down around the sides of the animals where we can expose these back straps and get them off of the animal. These animals hold a lot of heat, so you want to get this meat removed from the body as quickly as you can. This is a good clean way to do it. And notice that we haven't gutted this animal. This is a very clean way of cleaning animals because you don't have to drop the guts out of them before you actually start skinning and deboning them. So right now we've got this whole back strap exposed on this side, from right at the top of the hips all the way along this side, right up to the neck. Next cut we're going to make is right along the spine. I'm going to put the blade in vertically, cut all the way along the spine, then we'll come back around the edge right here and fillet this back strap off of it. Back strap actually runs up into the neck, but because of the angle the bull is laying at, we're actually going to cut the back strap right now. We'll retrieve the rest of it, the upper portion of the back strap, when we cut the head off here. We're just going to make a cut right down through the top, and I can actually feel the shoulder blade right here that's picking up. Okay, now you can see the back strap is actually between the shoulder and the backbone. We're just going to release more pressure down a little bit further along the spine. This thing's actually kind of wedged in between the spine and the shoulder blade, so we're just getting in there, carving that away. Free it up. At this point we're ready to start pulling it out. Now here, like taking my fingers and just getting inside between the meat and this outer layer of tissue right here, and just peeling it off with my hand. There are some places where it gets pretty sinewy, and you can just cut that. Now what you've done is you've exposed the underside of the back strap. So now all I have to do, I can feel where the ribs are. I'll just come in with my knife, use those ribs as a shelf, and just start separating the back strap from the ribs. So there's our whole back strap exposed. Now we just got to fillet it out. As you get into clearing the last rib here, be careful. You don't want to get through and puncture the stomach into the gut cavity. Any of this extra meat that's here, we'll come back and clean that up in our final butchering process. And you have your back strap. Now we want to get this thing cooling, so we're going to go to the nearest tree and hang it in the shade. With the back straps now removed, now what's left to do is start peeling the hide down both sides of the body. Now depending on the position that your animal is in, he could be on a steeper hillside than this, he could be on his side. You'll feel points of restriction as you're starting to remove the hide. So just relieve those points of restriction, this thing will start peeling off. It's a pretty easy process. At this point you can see we're starting to remove the hide down around where there's some belly fat. The more of that belly fat you can leave on the carcass, the more quickly that hide will cool and the less chance you have of hair slippage. This is a archery bull that we've taken. It's going to be a hot day, so we're going to try to leave as much meat as we can on the carcass and as much fat. And what we can't get off of the hide, we'll finish up later in the shop when we're preparing this cape, or the taxidermist could finish it up. Now the neck hide holds a lot of pressure. So what we can do is come in, hold that back up to where we started our initial cut and start peeling this away. Now, as you start cutting through some of the fat and so forth, you'll feel the cartilage of the ear up in here, and you want to cut that as close to the skull as you can. You'll see there's going to be glands in there, there's going to be fatty tissues in there, and we want to just free that up as much as we can so that there's no restriction. So right here you can see I've severed the ear right at the base of the skull. You can see the ear hole right here. And we'll just keep continuing to loosen up the cape around the base of the neck. And of course we'll finish up the caping of the head a little bit later. We've now freed this side from around the shoulder or the elbow joint here of this bowl. We'll keep coming around the stomach here. The dew claws, you can see as you get up in here and start cutting the tissues away, they're their own independent joint. Just going to work around it with the blade. It's all cartilage right there. We just separated it, and that dew claw is now separated from the bone. Just continue cutting around the front of this thing. We'll remove the other dew claw on this foot. We also have a tendon on the front side as well as the skin. You'll notice that we're doing this whole skinning process with basically 1 or 2 knives, no saws. A lot of people I see come into the woods with big saws, big huge knives. You don't need it. Kershaw's designed perfect knives. There are a lot of great knives out there that allow you to take care of a whole entire animal. Again, from an animal the size of a rabbit to a moose with just this right here. You just got to learn where the joints and all the tendons are. More about the anatomy you learn of an animal, the easier it is to take care of them in the field. Okay, so I'm basically going to cut right up to about the base of the leg. You can see the joint starts opening up there. And again, we're just relieving the pressure on cartilage, tendons, and ligaments. The more tissues you free up, the easier you'll see that it is to make some of these cuts. Get a little twist right there. Cut under that knuckle, and our foot is removed. Now the leg will start releasing itself. Okay, now you want to be careful here not to puncture into the guts. The gut cavity actually comes down here. You will cut some veins and arteries that will release some pressure in there, and that's okay. What I've done now is I'm actually getting right into the pelvic bone, and I'm actually right up to where the anus comes in, right in between the 2 hip joints. So now I'm just working right down along the pelvic line. You'll feel the bone in there. You can see. So here's the ball and socket joint. You'll see as we cut this right here, there's going to be a lot of pressure released. Okay. Now we're using the weight of the hind quarter to our advantage, helping us pull this meat away around the back of the pelvis. 1 more cut and we are free. Here's our elk hind quarter. Now we're going to go hang this in the shade. And we're going to get to there will now bones being connected to bones. So you just work up against that rib cage and you'll feel where the shoulder blade is. You'll cut inside that shoulder blade, cut all that white connective tissue, and you can see it just lays wide open like that. Beautiful, easy. Cutting. We're going to get to our leg bone. I now have the leg bone. The last cut I'll make just laid over on the outside of the meat. So and there you have it, tenderloin, gut-free and blood-free. We're going to remove the neck meat.
This is also ideal when packing out loads on your back, as it cuts down on extra weight carried in the bones of larger animals.